Please rewind this cassette.
On November 12, 2019, Disney launched Disney Plus, a new and exciting streaming service with over 300 titles. I decided that I had to commit myself to watching every single thing on this platform, including movies, television shows, animated films, shorts. I'm asking you to go on this journey with me through nostalgia and the past to see if we can see the future of content on the internet. This is Exploring Disney Plus. All right, guys, here we are. We are on Disney Plus officially. We're going to be going through some of the content on here and talking about it as very gradually. We're going to be going through just a few of the things I've watched so far. So far, I have to say, if I had to give like an overall review, I'm a fan. What Disney did here was sort of brilliant because the thing is that they didn't have to buy content in the way that Netflix did when Netflix launched, or Netflix rented content, really. So Netflix launched itself on things like Lost and Friends and The Office and stuff like that, Twilight Zone. Disney owned all of this stuff already. So they basically just uploaded like 300 plus shows, movies, and all that stuff on here for people to watch, and they still have a bunch of stuff that they haven't put on here yet, like more adult-oriented content, like the stuff on FX or the Alien franchise. There's some originals on here, like The Mandalorian and The World According to Jeff Goldblum, which I've watched the first 3 episodes too, which I did enjoy, by the way. But what's brilliant here is that, I don't see how this isn't just a profit thing. Let's say that this brings in a couple billion, $3 billion a year in revenue, just this, first year. Although I think it'll do more than that. Uh, I just don't think they have that much money in it. They probably put a lot of money into making the site. Also, it's funny how everyone just stole Netflix's format. This is exactly how Netflix looks, and the same thing, if you get on Hulu was very similar. Although Amazon Prime looks a little different. But a lot of times you get on these streaming websites. I was hoping Disney would do something a little bit different. I've also noticed that it's not as smooth as Netflix. The player doesn't work as well as Netflix. It's not as instant. When you set it up on a Chromecast or something like that, it's not as quick. The shows don't play in a pattern as well as they do on Netflix. It's sort of like when you go to another video hosting site that isn't YouTube. It just isn't always as polished. But it's not bad. I think they're getting better at it. They probably just had some bugs they had to figure out. But yeah, you look here, you have recommended for you, That's So Raven. Huh. Yes, I have been watching Boy Meets World and The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. But you have Avatar, Frozen, Toy Story 3, Avengers Endgame, trending right now, Home Alone, the entirety of The Simpsons, the Disney animated classics like Pinocchio and Peter Pan. And the crazy thing is a lot of these are in 4K, or at least in, they're in a Blu-ray, they're in a 1080 quality. Like I was watching Aladdin one day, and Aladdin's never looked this good before. We were watching Peter Pan, and it was clearly high quality. The thing about the Disney Vault and the Blu-rays is that they were so fucking expensive. I mean, if you wanted to go buy a Blu-ray of a classic Disney movie, sometimes it would be $40, $50 at certain points, or at least over $20. No matter what it was. But now that you have this, you don't have to do that anymore. And for a price of $6.99 a month, it's really hard to argue it. It's all everyone at my job's been talking about. Like, hey, dude, you watching Disney Plus? Hey, I was watching these old movies on Disney Plus. So it just seems like it's already taking over. It's the first thing to really feel like a competitor to Netflix. Because, I know Netflix has these huge originals like Stranger Things or Hill House came out recently. But it's really hard to compete with just this library, especially if you're an animation buff. You can watch all the classic Disney stuff. I was watching my favorite Mickey Mouse cartoon on Thanksgiving, Magician Mickey, just the other day. And there's documentaries on here, nature stuff, the short films from Pixar. Inspector Gadget too, my favorite. So as you see, there's a lot of content on here. Let's go through the search. So when you go to the search, you have the Through the Decades, which takes you through Disney, through like, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the Disney Channel original movies, the Disney Channel collection, the princesses, the Skywalker saga, the Darth Vader collection, the Spider-Man collection. Although, where the fuck is Spectacular Spider-Man? That's a cool thing too. They have the X-Men cartoon on here, the Hulk cartoon, the Iron Man cartoon, the Spider-Man cartoons from the 90s, Mickey Mouse and Friends, Disney Adventure, or Disney Nature, my bad. Animals in Nature, the Cars collection, the Toy Story collection, Marvel Animation, and of course the Muppets collection, which is pretty sweet. So let's say you click on one, you click here on the Disney Channel original movie, and you get the featured ones, which, you know, are like Camp Rock, High School Musical, the live action Kim Possible movie they did, and then you get to some classics. But I want to talk about this classic for the first episode of Disney Exploring Disney Plus, Horse Sense, starring the Lawrence brothers. If you don't know, in the 90s, there was the Lawrence brothers. They were on this show called Brotherly Love, but the first Lawrence brother to get famous was Joey Lawrence, who is the older brother of the trio. He was on a show called Blossom, where he had the catchphrase, "Whoa." Later on, though, there was a show, Brotherly Love. I only think it lasted 1 or 2 seasons. I used to watch it when I was a kid. And it starred Joey, his brother Matthew Lawrence, and of course the young Andy Lawrence. And then at a point, they started to get really popular with TV movies. They made a lot of TV movies, and they made a lot of you know, they were on shows on Disney Channel and stuff like that. This is still sort of what they do. Joey was on that show with Melissa Joan Hart, Sabrina. Andy got older and became a sex symbol to teen girls at the time. They were all like pretty boys. And then, of course, Matthew Lawrence was on Boy Meets World. So they had direct ties to the Disney Channel. The Lawrence brothers were huge. I really don't know if they're relevant anymore, if young people know who they are. But at one time, the Lawrence brothers were very, very famous for young people like me back in the 90s and the 2000s. This movie, though, is I just rewatched this with a friend who I was telling, you know, this is one of the best Disney Channel movies. This is one I remember watching all the time. They made a sequel to this that has all three of the Lawrence brothers in it, where they get stranded on an island and they have to fight like pirates or some shit like that. But this movie, it's really simple and sweet. It's only 90 minutes long. Matthew Lawrence has a cameo. Joey Lawrence plays Michael in this, who is a LA asshole. He's a rich kid. He's, you know, privileged, to use that term, if you will. And his cousin, what's his name? Danny? Tommy? I can't remember. I think it's Tommy. Tommy comes to visit him because they got along at this reunion they went on. Reunion they went 2 years ago. So Tommy's coming out to the city and he wants to see Disneyland and he wants to go out. And we first meet Michael. He's hanging out with his rich girlfriend who has a rich father who's a producer. She gets him a fancy new watch. He's not good in school, but he's a likable guy. Joey Lawrence has a lot of charisma. He's not a great actor. I'm not saying that, but he's likable enough. Tommy comes to see him, and Tommy's so excited. Tommy's made him this little item that's like the reunion they went to, and he's going to give it to him, and it's a special moment. So Michael ignores him on the first day, but he's like, "Hey, you're here for a week. Why don't you come into this room with popcorn, video games, a giant screen TV, VHS tapes, because it was still the 90s, and you can watch all of these movies, and I'll catch up with you later," because he's got his nose up this girl's ass. So he ignores Tommy for the whole week, and then he realizes on the last day, the maid tells him, she's like, "Dude, what the fuck? You've been ignoring this kid." He's like, "Okay, today's the day that, you know, we're going to hang out and do everything, and I'm going to ignore." But then, of course, the girl calls, "Hey, Daddy's in town. We're going to go see the horse races." So he drops Tommy off at a kiddie place, and then Tommy just leaves, fights with him, tells him to leave him alone, and Tommy goes back to his ranch in, like, Montana with his mom, where his father has passed, and he's been taking it very hard. Also, during this, Michael hits someone's car when he's backing out to get Tommy, gives her the wrong information, and all of this comes to a head. Michael gets in serious trouble. This is like the best scene in the movie, is the scene with the father. The father and mother confront him, and they're like, "You're not getting out of this easy. You're not talking your way out of this." The cops come to the door. They're like, "We know that you hit this woman and gave the wrong information. We know you ignored Tommy all week." Tommy's mother calls. He's like, "Listen, you're not going on this trip to the French Riviera with your girlfriend at the end of summer. You're not getting to go on this trip. You know, we have to teach you a lesson. We wanted to give you the things we didn't have, but we spoiled you." And the dad's really intense in this scene. It's a very good scene for a TV movie. I love TV movies because they're never pretentious. TV movies are so pure. It's like what's good about a really good Lifetime movie or a Hallmark movie. And the best Disney Channel movies capture this. as you've seen all this before, the rich guy has a, he has a silver spoon in his mouth, and then he has to go get humbled by, a smaller, older way of life. So they make a deal with him. They say, go to the ranch in Montana with your aunt and Tommy, work there for a month. If they say you do good, you can go on this trip with your girlfriend. If not, you don't get to go. That's it. So he's like, fine, I have to go to Montana. So this guy's such a jackass, he can't see that he's getting a free vacation to this beautiful ranch. I would honestly be excited about this, even if I lived in a mansion in LA. I would be like, hey, okay, cool, I'll go hang out at a ranch for like a month. So he buys his fancy cowboy outfit, which they all make fun of. And then now it's a role reversal. When Tommy was in the city, we got the sense of LA and Michael's world. Now we're in Tommy's world. Now we're in the ranch. And Tommy decides he's going to fuck with Michael this whole month. He's going to treat him like shit. Because this kid is pissed. This kid is upset about the death of his father. And this kid just fucking hates Michael and how he treated him when he was in LA. So Tommy just sets up all these scenarios where he just fucks Michael over. He's like, hey, move this manure. And then he has a shovel there and some gloves, so Michael thinks he has to move it that way, and then he finds out there's a tractor. That's basically what it is. It's watching this kid fuck with this guy for a while. He gives him a remote and says, hey, you can watch TV all night. And then Michael doesn't know you have to get up at like 4:30 in the morning to start working on a farm. But then slowly, like the movie Son-in-Law with Pauly Shore, Michael starts to like the farm life. He starts to appreciate horses. Out of nowhere, he becomes great at riding a horse. After a couple of days, there's like an action sequence where he's riding a horse back to the ranch. It's like, how'd you get so good at riding a fucking horse in like 2 days? It takes a long time to get really good at riding a horse. But then Michael and Tommy have their big fight, their big confrontation. And he's like, listen, you've got me back. Leave me the fuck alone. Stay out of my way. And Andy Lawrence is acting and yelling back at him, will you stay out of my way? Then you find out subtly through, looks at the mother and son that they're going to lose the ranch. That it hasn't made any money in a long time. And it was already bad stuff happening when his uncle was alive. They owe a lot of money to the bank. And Michael finds out about this and he calls his dad. He's like, why haven't you helped him out? And he's like, I've tried to. They don't want my money. They have pride. Also, the ranch doesn't make money anymore. So you're just putting money into something that's useless. So Michael's like upset about this. And this is where, the new man of the movie happens, the character development, the change. We start to see Michael get up before everyone else and practice riding his horse. We start to see Michael get good at doing the farm work. Him and Tommy start to bond again and be friends again and find out what they like about each other. And then Michael, and then you start to get a sense that the movie's about ranches and places like this going away for a different world, that the world's changing. And Michael really didn't understand that. He's getting a wider view of the world outside of the bubble world that he lives in. And he can't communicate this to his girlfriend. There's one time where he's setting out with a bunch of, I guess, cattle, and he's on his horse. And he's on the cell phone with her. And then the phone goes off and they all run. And then they get mad at him that he has a cell phone, which is very 90s. Because if this movie was made today, everybody would have a cell phone. And he wouldn't look like an asshole for having a cell phone. But back in the 90s, it was like, oh, you city boy on your cell phone, which is funny. And she has her ranch helpers who think Michael's a schmuck, which he is really. He is kind of a jackass. But then somewhere along the line, Joey Lawrence becomes likable and becomes the guy you want him to be. And it's like he always had these things inside of him, and he starts to discover them, and he forms a bond and a real love in this relationship with this sort of lifestyle. So the dramatic tension of the movie becomes that Michael has to try and find a way to save the ranch. He tries to give the money, which is his trust, to his aunt. She doesn't want it. So he doesn't know what to do. Tommy's upset. Tommy has this tree house that he was building with his father before his father died, and it stayed unfinished. So one day while they leave, Michael goes to finish it. In a really well done scene, because you think it's going to be this emotional, cheesy thing where Michael builds the tree house and then Tommy comes home and they hug. But Tommy comes and starts ripping it apart. He's pissed at Michael over this. He's like, this is our thing. So it's this kind of thing where, like, as long as the treehouse isn't finished, it's like his father's not really gone. So Michael stepped into an emotional spot that Tommy didn't want him to be in. Which is, I really like that, actually. I think it's well done. Like I said, this is one of the better Disney Channel original movies. It has subtlety. It's, it's well shot for what it is, a TV movie. There's some beautiful footage of the locations and of horses running in the wild. so it's nice, and they talk about, the wild horses brought luck to this place. That's what his father used to say. So then, in the big third act, Michael goes back to L.A. He's at the horse races. The girl's father just bought a horse, and Michael calms the horse down in front of everyone, and they're so impressed. Like, wow, look what he learned when he went to go work at this ranch. So in the end, he finds out that you can turn this ranch into a trust because of the horses on the land. That it basically wouldn't be owned by them anymore. I guess the government would own it, and it would be, historical, and they could run it and operate it, and they could keep their ranch, which is a way for her to keep it without taking the money, and it doesn't have to make a profit, which is nice. It shows it's something he learned in his classroom, that he got a D on a test, and he calls his dad and he's like, "Hey, go look at that part on my test that I took on real estate." So then he saves the ranch. Everybody loves Michael. He dumps the girl. He decides he's not going to go on the trip to Europe. He now believes in something more important. He's now learned something about life and who he is. And then him and Tommy at the end of the movie uh, build the tree house again. They finish it because Tommy is able to move on from the death of his father. He now has a friend, a bond, a new male figure in his life that means something to him. And the symbolism, the treehouse being finished is Tommy moving on, at least in a way, to move on from the death of his father and live a new life. And it's also Michael building something new in his life. What I like about this movie is, if you've seen these movies before, if you've seen the movie where someone is a city boy and he goes to the farm, it's all that stuff. If you've seen the ranch movies, if you've seen horse movies, this has a lot of the same tropes in it. There's a hilarious scene where there's a wild horse that Tommy's named all of them, is stuck in some mud, and they have to go save the horse, and it's all done in this like dramatic slow motion. It's like biblical when Tommy's pulling the horse out of the mud. There's these slow motion shots, and he's calming it down, which a wild horse in real life would just. And I don't want to hear you don't know anything about horses. I actually know quite a bit about horses. But a wild horse would fucking beat the shit out of you in reality if you did something like this. But Tommy and Michael save the horse. They pet the horse and it runs off. And this is where Michael learns how to handle the horse later. But there's a wonderful scene here where after Tommy realizes Michael isn't the guy he thought he was, Michael is leaving with the aunt in the car, and Tommy chases after them on a horse. And he gives Michael the thing he made for him. And he's like, it's the same as the reunion. And it's just the shot of the truck driving off and a young boy riding on a horse waving goodbye to his cousin covered in mud in slow motion. It's just kind of a beautiful image. Because what is horse sense? Michael had to learn a different way. He had to get a different instinct. He had to develop a different sense than the ones he had. He had to think in a different way. That's what the horse sense is. He didn't have it, and he learned it. And I think that moment kind of sums it up so well, that it's something that's more pure. The spiritual connection people find with horses, the spiritualism with horses and nature, and the bond people find with that, or just looking even into a horse's eyes. And that whole moment there, a truck driving off, this mechanical thing being chased by this boy on the horse, and he's waving. It's a beautiful moment. The movie ends nice, and that's what I like about the movie, is that it has things like that. It honestly could have been a longer movie, but it's not a bad way to spend an afternoon, I will say. I watched this movie so many times when I was a kid. Every moment was burned into my head. When I was watching it with my friend, every time a scene came up, I knew what was going to happen, and I would say it before, and they're like, Jesus Christ, dude, when was the last time you saw this movie? And I'm like, 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, a long fucking time ago. When you get older, time starts to get fuzzy. But I was shocked on how well it held up. There's some other Disney Channel movies I'm going to talk about down the road, like Smart House and Brink. But this one holds up. It's not bad. I'm hesitant to watch the sequel because I don't remember it being very good. But Andy and Joey have a nice chemistry. Andy's trying, but the real standout here is Joey Lawrence, who I think does show that he's perfect for this kind of thing, for being a lead in a TV movie. And Michael ends up becoming a really likable character. And it's that classic structure, it's a guy who starts out as the asshole, and then he turns into the good guy. He turns into the lovable hero at the end of the story. And it's a sweet, good-natured movie about people deep down being good, um, uh, appreciating people in your life a little bit more. and you know, just being considerate of people and considerate of younger people, of kids. And this movie lacks a lot of cynicism. It feels like it's a cynical movie, but it's really not. It's a very optimistic story. So if you never saw Horse Sense, I would recommend this to show to your kids. It's a good message. Or if you just want to go on a trip back to the 90s and see what it, you know, something that's very much a product of its time, which is what's beautiful about Disney Plus so far, is that it's a time capsule that you can go back and see the commercialism of art throughout the years and what Disney has done with it. But Horse Sense is if you want to see like what the whole Disney Channel movie craze was, which, you know, I guess peaked with High School Musical. And there's a lot of Disney Channel movies I like. Halloween Town's a classic. This is a good mid-tier to high-tier Disney Channel movie, and it gets by on just on a good enough premise for this sort of thing, and the chemistry between the two leads, and Joey Lawrence elevating the material, and giving a very fun performance. And it's always just fun. It's fun to see a guy like not know how to milk a cow, or not know how to ride a horse, or he gets into the cage with a bull. You know, all the stuff you've seen before. It's just fun to see that stuff. That's why I like the movie Son-in-Law. Son-in-Law is much better than this, by the way. But Horse Sense, it's very sweet. It's a sweet movie you could watch with your girl. If your girl's, you know, I think it's a movie chicks would like. It's like a chick flick, and I recommend it. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. But you know, I have 300 things to talk about, like Jesus, the Mickey Mouse Club, and eventually I would like to do stuff that has more clips to it and footage and cutting. I couldn't find any goddamn footage for this movie. I found like a promo on YouTube and a couple clips and some images. I could barely find anything for this movie. So that's the problem with this, is that some of the things that I'm going to talk about, there's nothing to put in a video with it. Where other things I can get footage and edit and work around that, obviously. I'm dreading watching the live action Lady and the Tramp, but I've been deep diving into some Disney Plus. I'm balls deep in it right now. So far it's been good. It's been a good experience, and the reason I wanted to create this series is that there's so much content on Disney Plus, and it is making us, you know, this is really a big moment for the future of content and what it's going to be on the internet. So I want to go on that journey with you guys. This is going to take years. I mean, this isn't something I'm going to be able to do in 6 months. So this is an investment I'm putting into this, and you know, yeah, we will talk about Mandalorian. I mean, I'm making this vow. I'm going to watch every single thing on Disney Plus. That doesn't mean I'm going to watch every episode of every TV series, but I will at least watch the pilot of every TV series. I will watch all of the animated stuff. I will rewatch all of the movies I've seen before, and I will just deep dive. So I'm going to watch everything on Disney Plus and talk about every single thing on here eventually. So this will have like 400 episodes at some point. So I hope you're willing to go on that journey with me. But yeah, Horse Sense, thumbs up. I very much liked it. Let's look at what the description is here. When 11-year-old Tommy visits his spoiled cousin Michael in Beverly Hills, he feels completely out of place. But the tables turn when Michael is sent to Tommy's Montana ranch for the summer. When the family learns that they may lose their ranch, the two cousins must pull together to save it. Wasn't that nice? Oh, here's some other stuff. Oh my god, I really don't want to watch this. Ready to Run in Buffalo Dreams. Oh my goodness. Oh, Miracle in Lane 2. That's a great fucking Disney Channel movie, as well as Alley Cat Strike. Both terrific. Let's see what extras are. Horse Sense clip. View a promo of this release and details. The movie was directed by Greg Beeman. It was released in 1999, so there you go. I was 9 years old when this came out. It has a G rating, and you can see the cast there, which I pretty much went over already, and that's about it. So they give you a little bit of stuff there. The genre is drama and coming of age. Well, there you go. There you go.